Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
I had been married to my wife for 26 years, and we had been together for a total of 29. We had two grown kids, aged 24 and 22, and I thought we had a great marriage. We met in college, fell in love, got married, and built our lives together. We communicated well, supported each other's careers, and shared a fulfilling love life, even if it wasn't as frequent as when we were younger. I owned a small landscaping company that employed about 75 people, and my wife had been working from home a lot lately. We had talked about me transitioning out of the daily operations of the business so we could travel and enjoy life together now that the kids were established. Looking back, I see no obvious signs that something was off. She didn't change her behavior in any noticeable way. No weird texting, no guarding her phone, no odd clothing changes, and no nights out with work colleagues. When she did go out, it was usually with friends or family, and I would often hear from others the next day how I should have gone with her, but I enjoyed my alone time in the shop. The day everything changed, or D-Day, came as a shock. A week before, I had planned a surprise romantic weekend getaway for our anniversary at a bed and breakfast owned by some friends. Our state was hosting a winter festival, so I left work early to surprise her and told her to pack a bag. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a strange car there. Immediately, I had this sinking feeling. I didn't know why, but I just knew something was wrong. I sat in the truck for a moment, trying to talk myself out of it, hoping I was mistaken. But the more I thought about it, the more certain I became. I wasn't sure what to do: leave and confront her later, or just pretend I hadn't seen anything. My hands were shaking uncontrollably, but I forced myself to stay calm. I always tell myself to man up when I have to face something uncomfortable at work, and somehow that mantra helped calm me down. I decided to sneak in the back door, and when I did, my black lab, usually so excited to see me, was lying there with a sad look, as if he knew what had happened. Instead of jumping on me, he stayed lying down. I quietly walked upstairs. As I got closer to the bedroom, I could hear noises coming from inside. I opened the door, and there it was, her boss on top of my wife. I stood there for a moment before I yelled out, "Surprise!" The chaos that followed would have been laughable if it didn't hurt so much. He scrambled to get out of the bed, but got tangled up in the sheets. My wife was screaming, "OMG, OMG, OMG," while trying to cover herself, but she couldn't because he was still stuck in the sheets. He finally managed to get up, looking for his clothes, which were on the other side of the bed. For some reason, I grabbed them before he could, and it hit me in a place I didn't expect. It was where my clothes used to end up. My wife was crying, repeatedly apologizing, but I just backed up to the door and stood there. He stood next to the bed, completely naked. I grabbed the big, easy chair from the corner, pulled it over to the door, and sat down. He asked for his clothes, and I told him no, tossing him my wife's robe from the back of the door. As he started walking toward me, I stood my ground. Despite being 51, I'm in good shape: 6 feet 3 inches, 240 pounds from years of going to the gym and working in landscaping. I looked at him and said, "If you get any closer, it's not going to end well for either of us. You'll be in the hospital, and I'll be in jail, so why don't you just sit down?" My wife was sobbing into the pillow, and he sat down after a long, uncomfortable silence. Then he asked, "What now?" I replied, "I have no idea." My wife was still crying, but she finally sat up. I pulled out my phone and told them they were going to tell me everything while I recorded it. They exchanged a glance, and my wife asked, "What do you mean, everything?" I told her everything: how it started, how long it's been going on, where, when, hotels, dinners, etc. Everything. She said, "This is the only time," and I snapped back, "BS. There's no way you'd be comfortable enough to bring him to our bed if this hadn't been going on for some time. If you lie to me again, I'm walking out that door and finding a divorce lawyer." She started crying again, and over the next 10 to 15 minutes, it all came out. It had been going on for over 9 months. It started with him flirting with her, then he asked her to lunch, and a few drinks later, they ended up at a hotel. She came home to me that night like nothing had happened. She swore it was killing her, and she wanted to tell me but didn't know how. I called BS again. I told her, if it was killing you, it wouldn't have been so easy to keep it going. They even went to a week-long work convention that I used to attend with her, but she told me company policy had changed and spouses couldn't go anymore. I put my phone away, and after more silence, an idea hit me. I started going through his clothes for his phone, asked him for the passcode, and he actually gave it to me. I began looking through his phone and found pictures of a woman I assumed was his wife. I asked her name, and he told me it was Carol. She was very pretty, but not as pretty as my wife. I pointed out more pictures of kids and found out he had 3. Finally, I found a family picture of them all. I held up the phone and said, "A beautiful family. Why did you throw it all away for a fling with my wife?" He looked at me and asked, "What do you mean, throw it all away?" I shot back, "You really think Carol won't find out?" He asked, How is she going to find out? I replied, I'm going to call her right now. He stood up and said, No, you can't. My wife screamed, Please, you can't do this to him. I've lost it all. You've destroyed me, our family, our friends, our future, and broken my heart, and you're worried about him? I was shaking again, trying not to let her see me cry, but I couldn't hold it together. I fell back into the chair, sobbing. She tried to come over to me, but I looked at her and said, Stay the hell away from me. After a while, I calmed down and looked at his phone again. He begged, Please don't, I'm begging you. I told him, I swear I will. Yeah, right, I added. He stood there, pleading with me as I found her number. I decided FaceTime would be better. She answered, sounding surprised, Who is this? Is my husband okay? I said, He is for now, but won't be in a minute. I flipped the screen to show him standing there in my wife's robe. I believe you know him. The room he was in was our bedroom, and the flowered robe he was wearing belonged to her. I swung the phone to catch my wife trying to pull the sheets over her head, but it was too late. That's my wife, and I came home early today to find them having sex. I genuinely felt sorry for her and lousy about how I did it. She started crying, and he started with the typical I'm so sorry. I can explain, it was just one-time routine. I told her not to believe a word of it. It had been going on for over 9 months, and I spent the last 15 minutes recording all the details they were willing to share. I told her I would text her my number and that she should send me her email so I could send her the video. I gave him the phone, and I heard her tell him that when he got home, there would be a bag packed outside. If he tried to come in the house, she'd call the police and hung up. I tossed him his clothes, and he left after getting dressed. Now it was just me and my wife. She looked at me and started crying, saying how sorry she was, that she never meant to hurt me, and asking if I could forgive her. She said it didn't mean anything, all the usual cheater excuses. I told her to pack a bag and get the hell out of my house. I went downstairs and poured myself a drink, sitting on the couch when she came down. She started walking toward me, and I said, Just stop. She asked if we could talk about it, and I told her, Maybe, just maybe, but not right now. I added, It's going to be really hard not to look for a divorce lawyer. She started crying again, and I knew what was coming next. I know and I love you, and I said, Don't you dare say that right now, because I don't think I'll ever believe it anymore. As she walked out the door, tears streaming down her face, it felt like my entire life was leaving me. I broke down, collapsing on the floor, shaking and sobbing uncontrollably. I have no idea how long it lasted, but eventually, I sat up, still crying, and called my best friend. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out through the sobs. He asked what was wrong, but I couldn't respond. He asked if I was at home, and I grunted a yes. He said he'd be there in 30 minutes. When he arrived, I was still crying. I handed him my phone with the video playing, and he started watching it. I couldn't bear to hear it, so I went to get us both a drink. He came into the kitchen, took the drinks from me, and dumped them, telling me, This isn't going to help. He insisted I couldn't stay alone that night, so he told me to go upstairs and pack a bag. I came back downstairs, and he had my lab on a leash, ready to go to his place. That was 10 days ago, and I still feel like absolute. I know this was a long post, but thank you for reading. I'll try to update again later. I want to express how much I appreciate all the advice and support I've received from this community. I owe each and every one of you a debt of gratitude I can never repay. All I can say is thank you, and I'll try to reply to all the comments. Your support and encouragement have been incredibly helpful. Many of you mentioned that the way I handled the confrontation shows strength, but right now, I feel anything but strong. I'm just going through the motions. The advice has been outstanding, and it's helping me move forward. The reason I originally posted and reached out for help was because I needed it. I've received plenty of advice, and I appreciate it. The reason my first post was removed was because it had too much storytelling and didn't ask for support, but I'll try to keep this shorter. I still believe the details matter. If you didn't see the original post, I've been told it made its way to YouTube, so I guess you can search it by title. I'm starting to realize that there's no coming back from this, and I'm 99% sure what my decision will be. Still, I can't shake the thought of throwing away 29 years of our lives together. Even now, I can't bring myself to type SDBXW. I still refer to her as my wife. What's wrong with me? The night of D-Day, she went to our son's and his wife's place. He called, wondering what was wrong and why I had thrown his mom out. I told him she needed to tell him, or I would. He knows now. I went to my best friend's house, and our daughter was supposed to dog sit. She came home to find no dog. Eventually, she showed up at my friend's place and wanted to know what was going on. The hurt on her face was worse than seeing my wife in bed with her boss, and it killed me. She left with the dog to the house, and her fiancé came over. On Saturday morning, I told my best friend that I was going to spend a few days at the cabin, and he agreed to take me there. I packed up, grabbed the dog, and spent the weekend there, walking in the woods and splitting firewood. It was a good workout and a form of therapy. On Saturday, my son drove me home on Monday. On Monday, I began making phone calls, bank, credit cards, and to the lawyer I use for the company. He recommended someone, so I called and arranged to meet with her on Thursday. I played her the recording, and she was extremely confident. I hired her and asked about letting my wife and boss's HR department know. She suggested holding off for now. I was home, sleeping on the couch, unable to bring myself to go into the bedroom, except for getting clothes. On Friday, my son called to tell me that my wife couldn't stay with them anymore. It was becoming too difficult for him and his wife. He asked if there was any way my wife could come home. I hadn't spoken to her since D-Day, but I gave in and said okay. She came back on Saturday, and I went back to the cabin. It was cold as hell, but I managed to get through it. On Monday, I went straight to the office. The people there love my dog, and he gets spoiled. Finally, I went home Monday night. When I saw my wife, all I could see was the scene from D-Day when I opened the bedroom door. I don't think I'll ever get past that. We didn't speak. I changed and went to my office in the basement to try to stay busy. Later, I watched TV in the basement. She came downstairs and asked if we could talk about this, but I told her not yet, I wasn't ready. I asked her to leave me alone while she was here. I fell asleep in the recliner and got up early, heading to the gym, showering there, and then going to work. I'd go home late, and that became my routine for the rest of the week. On Friday, my HR manager asked how I was doing. I told her what had happened, and she suggested I needed to stop sleeping in chairs and on the couch and buy a new bed. I thought it was a great idea, so I took the money left in our joint account, her half, and went to buy a new bed. When the bed was delivered, I felt a strange sadness. I went to the office and waited for the call telling me they'd be there in 30 minutes. I stopped to pick up a couple of subs for the delivery guys, then waited down the block. When they pulled up, I met them outside, gave them each $25, and asked them to do me a favor. I requested they not load up the old mattress and come back later to pick it up, leaning it up against a tree near the street. They looked confused, but I told them to give me 5 minutes, and they'd understand. I had considered burning the old mattress in the driveway, but I didn't want to deal with the mess. I went upstairs to remove the bedding, and as I was doing it, something came to mind that I had to do. I grabbed a can of blaze orange spray paint that we use for marking properties and sprayed "Wife cheated on me" in our bed in big letters. The guys came back inside, and my wife asked what was going on. I told her I couldn't sleep in that bed anymore, and that she bought me a new one. She acted mad, but went back downstairs. The new bed was set up, and the delivery guys left. I asked them to leave the old mattress in the yard, and they did. Some time passed, and she told me the delivery guys left the mattress in the yard, and they were coming back to get it. I tried not to laugh, still not sure she knew, but the entire neighborhood definitely did. On Valentine's Day, she tried to be romantic and initiated intimacy. I told her, I wouldn't sleep with you now if you were the last woman on earth. She replied, "We don't sleep together, we make love," in an upset tone. I responded, "We haven't made love since you started sleeping with your boss." She looked shocked. Did she think I'd forget? I'm just at a loss for understanding what's going through her mind. I decide now's as good a time as any to talk, so I ask her to sit down in the living room. I ask her what she wants to do. Are we going to try to fix this, or should we just get divorced and move on? I don't even know why I offered that. Maybe I'm just stuck on throwing away 29 years together. Please talk me out of this. She says she's willing to do anything I ask to fix this and begs for my forgiveness. I tell her she needs to come clean to everyone in our family, starting with her parents and my mom. My dad's been gone for 3 years. The kids don't know the details, and they're coming over tonight. I'll update later on how that goes. That's where I'm at now, still numb from everything and really fighting the urge to go kick her boss's butt. After spending that night at my friend's house, my wife went to our son and his wife's place. Both kids know about the affair, but not the details, which was a sad morning. I drove to the cabin with the dog and stayed until Monday. On Monday, I went straight to the office and started making phone calls, bank, credit cards, etc. I called the lawyer I use for my company, and he recommended a divorce attorney. I met with her on Thursday, and she said all the right things, so I hired her. I spoke to my HR manager and told her everything. She's a close professional friend. She recommended someone for individual counseling, and I've had 2 sessions with her. It's helping. On Friday, the week after D-Day, my son called and said it was awkward having mom in their small apartment. He asked if there was any way she could come home, and I gave in. She came back, but I left for the cabin to show just how much I didn't want to be around her. It was below zero that whole weekend, with night lows in the -20 to -25 range. On Monday, I went straight to the office. People there love my lab, and he gets spoiled. I stayed late, went home, and couldn't even look at her. I went to the basement to watch TV, and she came down, asking if we could talk about this. I told her I wasn't ready and to leave me alone while she was here. On Friday, my HR manager asked how I was doing. I told her I'd been sleeping on the couch or in the recliner in the basement. She suggested I buy a new bed. I thought it was a great idea, so I went and picked one out. The delivery was sad. I considered burning the old mattress, like some suggested, but didn't want to deal with the cleanup. I went to work and waited for the call telling me the truck would be there in 30 minutes. I picked up 2 subs for the delivery guys and waited for them. I gave them each $25 and asked if they could do me a favor, leave the old mattress against a tree by the street and come back for it at the end of the day. They look confused, but I tell them to give me 5 minutes before they come to get the mattress. I go inside and remove the bedding, and something clicks. I have to ask about this. I grab a can of Blaze orange spray paint that we use for marking properties, and I spray "Wife cheated" in our bed in big letters on the mattress. The guys follow through and leave the mattress against the tree as I asked. Later, my wife says they forgot to take the old mattress away, and I tell her they're coming back for it. I don't think she knows what I did. On Valentine's Day, she tries to be romantic, makes a nice dinner, but I don't eat. She tries to initiate intimacy, and I tell her I wouldn't have sex with her if she were the last woman on earth. She replies, "We don't have sex, we make love." I respond, "We haven't made love since you decided to sleep with your boss." I can't really describe the look on her face. She goes to the kitchen, trying not to cry. I figure now's as good a time as any to talk, so I tell her to come into the living room and sit down. I ask her what she wants to do. I know it's a stupid move, but I ask if we should divorce and move on, or try to fix this. She says she's willing to do anything to fix it, to make it up to me. I'm not sure how she can make it up to me, but I tell her she needs to come clean to the rest of the family before we can try to fix anything. She agrees. That night, my mom, her parents, her sister, and Bill come over. We all sit in the living room, and I try to stay as far away from her as possible. They start asking what's wrong, saying, "We love you, it will all be okay," as if someone is really sick. I look at her and say, "This story isn't going to tell itself." Her dad looks at me, and I swear his eyes are saying, "Oh no," like he knows what's coming. I have to give her credit. She cries her way through it and spills the truth, including me walking in on them in our bed. After a long, uncomfortable silence, she says, "Somebody say something." I reply, "What are they supposed to say? That you're a horrible person? That you hurt me worse than you know? You ripped my heart out. You've thrown away 29 years, ruined our family, and let's not even get into what you two have done to his family. Was the sex really that good that it was worth all that?" I just keep going. All the anger, hatred, and betrayal I've been holding inside come pouring out. I didn't even know I could be that cruel. Her mom finally says, "That's enough." She tells me no, she deserves all of it, and runs upstairs crying. Her mom gets up to go after her, but her dad says, "No, leave her alone. She needs to suffer for a while before this can get any better." We talk for a while. They offer their support and tell me, "If you need anything, just ask." I tell them I've been in individual counseling, and I think I'll be okay, but I appreciate their offer. I tell them that despite everything, I still love her, and that she's going to need them more than I do. I go to bed and sleep better than I have since D-Day. The next morning, before I leave, I go into the guest room and can tell she didn't sleep at all. She's been crying all night. I really think that for the first time since D-Day, the full weight of what's happening has hit her, telling her family, and me going off on her like I did. I think it finally broke her out of the affair fog. She looks like she's truly showing remorse. I tell her we need to talk more, and as I talk, she listens. I explain that I'm 99% leaning toward divorce, but I'm still holding on to that 1% if there's any hope. She needs to do what I've asked to help me get over this. She says she'll do anything. Just please don't make any decisions yet. I remind her of a story I told her when my dad died when I was 17. My dad told me that life would bring tough times, but how you handle them says more about you than the hard times ever could. He told me, no matter what, never make important decisions when you're upset. At the time, I shrugged it off, but I start to cry as I say, "I wish you were still here so I could tell him that I really was listening." She gets up and gives me a hug. I don't hug her back, but it feels good, which scares me. She sits back down, and I tell her she needs to move out. I can't heal if I see her every day. We need space. She agrees and asks what else she can do. I tell her I'm too emotional to think straight right now, but I'll let her know what else I need later. On my way to work, I call my lawyer to see if I can meet her today. She's free on her way to the office, so we meet for coffee. I explain what's been going on, the 99% to 1% dilemma, and ask her to start drawing up divorce papers to get the process going if that's the way I decide to go. She suggests that if I have time and can afford it, I should find my wife an apartment and cover the first month's rent. If this ends up going to court, it'll show good faith on my part for an amicable split. I agree, and she says she'll have something for me to look at by Monday. At work, I call a real estate broker we've worked with over the years, explain the situation, and tell him what I need. He knows a rental agent who will call me. The agent calls back with a place that fits my price range and location requirements. I meet with the property manager, give him a check for February, March, and the deposit. When I get home, I tell my wife I found her a place and paid for the first month's rent. She has to meet with the manager and sign the lease. It's only a 6-month lease, which I guess is a plus. She says she's surprised I moved so quickly, and I tell her that I needed her not to come back to the house from our sons while she's gone. I then call movers, and luckily, it's the middle of the month, so they can come on Saturday when she gets home. I tell her I've arranged for movers and ask why she hasn't inquired about anything financial. She looks confused, so I tell her I've canceled our credit cards, withdrawn my half from our joint account, and canceled my debit card. She seems angry but says she doesn't blame me. It turns out she hasn't needed to spend anything. She's been spending all her time between our sons and the house, not going anywhere or needing anything. I also find out she called her employer to request a leave of absence, citing personal issues. They allowed her to take her paid vacation before starting the leave of absence. On Friday, I tell her she can take whatever she needs for the new place. Just leave me something, and not to touch anything from the basement or any of my family heirlooms, including my new bed. I also tell her I'm willing to try marriage counseling and that she should find 3 different therapists. I'll pick the one I think will be the best for us. I leave early Saturday morning, and when I come home, the house is half empty, including the TV. That's fine. I wanted a bigger one anyway. My friend still has my liquor, so I stop by to pick up my favorite bourbon and enjoy sipping on a glass while typing this. Sorry for the long post, but thanks for reading. Tomorrow, I'm going to the gym, going to make my favorite chili, and buy a new TV. I'm sure I'll have more to update in the future. Today marks 4 weeks since D-Day, and it feels like a good time for an update. Thanks to everyone for your comments, support, advice, and perspective. Sunday night, I got a call from my younger sister. Honestly, I don't know why I hadn't told her yet, but our mom called her and told her to call me. She invited me to visit before I get busy in the spring, as she and her husband live in SC. I might do that. On Monday morning, I met with my lawyer to go over the divorce papers. 2 big points. She stays out of my company, and I keep the house, buying out her half of the equity over a 5-year period. There will be no alimony since she has a good-paying job. The cabin land was given to me by my grandfather, so if she wants any share of the increased value from the cabin I built, we'll talk about that. This is all contingent on her agreeing to an uncontested divorce. I'm just waiting for the right time. Later at work, my soon-to-be ex-wife called and spoke to my assistant. She gave her 3 names and numbers and told her to let me know, but when my assistant asked if she wanted to talk to me, she said, "No, just give him the numbers, and I'll know what they are." The 3 are marriage counseling therapists, which I already knew. My assistant comes in, closes the door behind her, and asks what's going on. She's shocked, just like everyone else, and insists that I have to let the rest of my work family know what's happening, especially the people who've been with me for over 20 years. I agree, so I have her gather them in the design room. I tell the story again, and they're surprised, but they offer their support. I ask my IT guy to come to my office and inquire if he can track my soon-to-be ex-wife's phone calls and text messages. He explains that since it's a company phone, it won't be an issue. Later, he emails me everything he has, and I save it to review later. Before I leave, I call the marriage counselors and ask a few questions. One is polite but brief, while the other is open to a longer conversation, answering my questions and asking me a few of her own. My main question is how she defines success in therapy. Does it mean we reconcile and get back together, or is it something else? She tells me that success, to her, is whatever is best for both of us. It could be staying together, or it could be divorce. I set an appointment for Thursday. On Tuesday, I have lunch with the AP's wife. We sit for 2 hours, comparing notes to see if either of us knows more than what was shared on the day we found out. We try to understand why this happened, what we might have done wrong, and what we missed. We both agree that this is not our fault. In hindsight, she realizes she missed or ignored some red flags and suspects this isn't the first time he abruptly left a previous company and wasn't working for a while. I suggest she ask her lawyer if it's possible to get employment records, as this could impact any divorce proceedings, and a subpoena might be a way to obtain them. She mentions that she's been letting him live in the basement, but they barely see each other. She asks if I'd be willing to do her a favor. Of course I agree. She wants to meet the AP for lunch and asks me to surprise him so we can both confront him. I set it up for Wednesday. That night, I go to my soon-to-be ex-wife's new apartment unannounced, wondering if my decision will be made for me if I find the AP there. She answers the door, looking terrible, like she hasn't slept or eaten since she moved out. I feel 2 separate emotions when I see her: the part of me that's angry, thinking tough luck, you brought this on yourself, and the part that still cares, wanting to comfort and protect her. She hugs me, but I resist the urge to hug her back. I sit down and ask for something to drink. She brings me a Diet Mountain Dew. I ask to see her phone, and without hesitation, she hands it over. I spend the next 30 minutes going through it. No conversation. There are several texts to the AP, including ones where she says she never wants to see him again, that she can't believe how stupid she was to get involved with him, and how she ruined the best thing she had in her life. I have what I need, and I'll compare it to the information my IT guy has to see if anything has been deleted. I give her the phone back and tell her that while I haven't lied to her, I haven't told her everything. I inform her I have a lawyer and that divorce papers have already been drawn up. She doesn't cry, just looks defeated. I tell her she should get a lawyer, too. Her phone buzzes with an incoming text. She starts swearing at it, and then shows me the text it's from the AP, saying he's so depressed and needs to see her. I tell her I can leave if he wants to come over. She tells me no, then shows me what he texts back, essentially telling him to F off and never contact her again. I ask her why she hasn't blocked him yet, and she says, "Duh, I should have known that." I watch as she blocks him. I tell her we have an appointment with a marriage counselor on Thursday, and she looks happy, but I remind her, don't get too excited. Nothing is guaranteed. I tell her she needs to make a list of what she's willing to do to help me heal and fix things, and to bring it on Thursday. I leave it there for now. This is getting too long, and I have some work to finish. I'll try to update more tonight. Wednesday morning, I lock myself in my office, going through everything my IT guy sent me. It matches what I saw on my wife's phone the night before. I then go to meet the AP's wife and surprise the AP at their lunch meeting. He freaks out when he sees me. She tells him to calm down and says she invited me. He looks shocked. We grill him for half an hour, and he confirms what I saw on my soon-to-be ex-wife's phone. For the first 3 months, it was an emotional affair, and it only became physical in the last 6 months. I know it's not a huge revelation, but I ask if he's tried to contact or has contacted her since D-Day. He says no, but I call BS. I tell him, I was with her when you texted her last night about how depressed you are and how you really want to see her. His wife has smoke coming out of her ears, but stays calm. I then ask, what happened at your old employer? Why did you leave so suddenly? He says, none of your business. I tell him, you might as well confess because it's going to come out anyway. Don't you owe your wife some honesty for once? He still refuses. I bluff and say, my lawyer is going to subpoena the records because it will show a pattern of behavior related to my soon-to-be ex-wife in our divorce. He looks scared and confused. After a while, he admits to having an affair with a coworker, which got him fired. She goes ballistic, calling him every name in the book and telling him to get the hell out of the house. She calms down before we get kicked out, starts crying, and tells him he needs to leave, pack his things, and get out. He refuses, but I convince him to leave and give her some space. She and I talk for a while, and she asks if she can have my lawyer's number. It turns out she was going to try to work things out with him until 5 minutes ago. Now, she wants to take him to the cleaners. We leave, and I tell her to call me if she needs anything. Realizing that his life is about to be as messed up as mine puts a brief smile on my face. Thursday, the soon-to-be ex-wife meets me at the MC's office. The therapist starts by explaining some ground rules about how difficult this process will be and how it will ultimately be up to us whether or not this will work out. She says we need to be brutally honest with each other and ourselves, and she is there to help however she can. She asks who wants to start, and I speak up. I tell both of them that I will work as hard as I can, but it will be tough. 3 things I can't seem to get over. First, every time I see her, I don't see the woman I married, I just see the image of her boss on top of her. Second, when I was about to call his wife, her response wasn't concerned for me. Instead, she said, you can't do this to him. Finally, I don't believe she's truly remorseful for all the pain she's caused not just to me, but to our family, friends, and even AP's family. She's only sorry she got caught. If I hadn't walked in that day, she'd probably still be with him. It feels good to get that off my chest. She's crying, but honestly, I don't care. I believe, deep down, she's starting to realize the extent of what she's done and is beginning to feel remorse, but it might be too late. She starts talking about how she knows she ruined everything, that it's nobody's fault but her own, and how she knows she has to accept the consequences of her actions. Her main concern is helping me heal from what she's done, but she realizes it might never be enough, and that I'll probably leave anyway. She continues by saying that I shouldn't blame myself because I've been a great husband, father, partner, lover, and best friend. She admits she can't really give me a solid reason for what she did because she can't even answer it for herself. She started individual counseling yesterday, and maybe one day, she'll be able to answer that question for herself and me. She reaches into her purse and hands me her list. I tell her to give it to the therapist. She looks at it and asks if I want to go over it. I tell her I'll look at it on my own, and we can discuss it next time. We talk for a while longer, and then time's up. We agree to meet next week. Before we leave, Both she and the therapist asked me not to make any decisions yet, and that today was a good first step. Today is Saturday, and I still haven't looked at the list. Not much else is happening. The kids are coming over for dinner tomorrow, and I'm going to give them more details about what happened, what's going on now, and ask how they feel about getting a paternity test. I'll update later. The dinner with the kids was moved to tomorrow. I decided to call my soon-to-be ex-wife to tell her I needed to talk to her. This afternoon, I bought a new phone at the suggestion of people here to try something sneaky. She showed up with takeout from my favorite Chinese place. I told her to come in, but that I wasn't going to sit down and have dinner with her. Before she came over, I typed a text, pretending to be AP, saying, "Wife threw me out. I'm really depressed and need to see you. Please don't hate me. We were good together and can still be. Just give me a chance to prove that to you. You know I really care for you, and I believe you feel the same way. Please, I need to see you." I was just waiting for the right moment to send it. We sat at the kitchen table, and I started telling her about the meeting with the other betrayed spouse, OBS, and the meeting the next day with AP and OBS about him lying about contacting her. But I hold off on telling her why he lost his last job. I tell her about OBS being furious and throwing him out. I also express my concern that AP might do something harmful to her, like stalking her. She needs to be careful. Her response was, "F him, he deserves everything he gets." My reply was, "Look at me." I stared right at her and said, "So do you, because you did F him." There was no reply, just a dejected look. I excused myself to go to the bathroom and sent the text. When I came back, she looked angry and was texting. I asked her who she was texting, and she told me it was AP. I said, "I thought you blocked him?" Acting all pissed off. She said she did, but she has a new number, and showed me the message along with her response, telling him to leave her alone and that she never wanted to hear from him again. My phone vibrated in my pocket, so I asked her about the list, wondering if there was anything she wanted to add. She said she should meet OBS and apologize to her, which I'll work on. I told her I needed 2 more lists by the next MC. The first list should be a timeline of the affair, including everything from the flirting to the first time they had sex, to D-Day. She agreed. I told her I needed to let the dog out, and that I'd be right back. I went outside with the dog and sent her another text from AP, pleading for her to reconsider, saying he'd make it up to her, and that they were meant to be together. I laid it on thick. When I came back in, she was texting again and told me it was AP. She let me read the text and her reply, which threatened to go to the police if he didn't stop. She then asked if I could keep her on my company plan and if she could get a new phone or just a new number. I told her to leave her phone, and I'd take it tomorrow and drop off a new one. She asked about the second list, and I told her I wanted all the details about everything they did sexually. She looked shocked, and I told her to put the details in separate sealed envelopes. I wouldn't open them until I felt she wasn't doing enough or was lying to me. With that, I was done and told her she needed to go. She responded, and I enjoyed Chinese food alone. The kids came over for dinner last night, and we talked for a long time. I'll share more on that later. I didn't sleep well on Sunday night after the fake text stunt. It's not who I want to become. I went to SDBXW's apartment to drop off the new phone. I asked if I could come in, as I had something to tell her. The look on her face made me think she thought I had filed for divorce. I told her I had her new phone, but that she really didn't need it. She asked, "What do you mean?" I told her that I was the one texting her last night, not AP. I paused for a moment and then apologized for lying to her. She looked depressed and sat down. I told her that I was still holding on to the 1% life raft, but I couldn't be dishonest if this was going to work. She wiped away a few tears. It wasn't the reaction I expected. I thought she'd be pissed. Then she said, "This is what I've done." She looked at me and said, "You are the most honest, truthful person I've ever known, and I brought you to this because of my selfishness. I took advantage of your good nature, your faith, and trust in me, and betrayed and hurt you in the worst way possible. I've never been one to buy into the whole triggers concept. I always thought that was something for the snowflakes. But I've changed my mind." There was something about her last statement and the way she said it that hit me deeply, and it caused me to start crying, something I swore I'd never do in front of her. Before I knew it, I was sobbing uncontrollably. Between sobs, I managed to ask, "How could you do this? Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? What you've done to our children?" There's a hole in my chest where my heart used to be. She cried too and sat beside me, wrapping her arms around me. After we both stopped, I got up and asked if she still wanted the new phone. She nodded, so I gave it to her. She then asked if I had read her list, and I told her I had. It was a good start, but I didn't agree with one part of it. She looked puzzled, and I told her it was the part where she said I should go out and have an affair. I asked her if she remembered the day we first met. She nodded. I told her that when we met that day playing volleyball at school, even though I thought she was out of my league, I believed that if I could win her over and build something together, I wouldn't need to be with another woman again. After a few dates, and the first time we made love, I knew I was right, and I would do everything I could to spend the rest of my life with her. Up until 4 weeks ago, I still felt that way. In my eyes, she was still that girl I met playing volleyball. Through the tears and the silence, I finally said, I have to go. The kids are coming over for dinner. She told me she wouldn't ask to join us and understood my need to stay away from her. I agreed and told her that I would only see her at MC for a while. I mentioned that I was going to talk to the kids about the paternity test, and she said she didn't blame me and had no right to ask me to believe her. But she said this was the only time she had stepped outside of our marriage. As I was leaving, she asked me to wait because she had something else to tell me. She said she had emailed HR at her company and resigned. She knew that in order for me to heal, she couldn't see her boss again. She wanted to report him to HR and get him fired. I asked her not to do that, as it might affect OBS and her divorce. She agreed and then asked if there was any chance I still had feelings for her, and if I could add her to the company insurance plan since we were still married for now. I said yes. When the kids came over for dinner, I told them about the conversation Mom and I had regarding the paternity test. I reassured them that it didn't matter to me. I would always be their dad and love them unconditionally until the day I die. My son asked if I believed her, and I told him that I did. He said he wanted to ask her himself, and I could tell he was angry at the thought of needing to ask. I sternly told him, no matter what has happened, she is still your mother. I need to work on forgiving her. I tell my daughter the same thing, and we talk about it for a while. I also fill them in on what's been going on over the past few weeks. After they leave, I try to get some rest. I want to take a moment to thank everyone for all the support, advice, and encouragement. It really means more than you know. I had lunch with OBS on Wednesday. She says she's doing okay, but I really question that. She looked more pale and a little thinner than she did just a week ago. She said she hasn't heard from Pa since last Thursday when he came by to pick up the rest of his things. He told her he was going to stay at an extended stay hotel for a while, so I guess he won't be stalking anyone. I told her she should reach out to her closest neighbors if she's close enough to them and tell them what happened, asking them to keep an eye out for trouble. She said she would. I also asked if she had changed the locks, and she said she hadn't thought of that. I told her I'd come over, see what she needed, and take care of it. She insisted I didn't have to, but I insisted, saying we were now like brother and sister in betrayal, and besides, it would mean less time alone in my house. She's retained the same lawyer I have, and said she seemed like a shark who would take Pa to the cleaners. I told her that the lawyer's working for her, and she'll do whatever she needs. For me, she's protecting me in case divorce is the best option, and everything is ready to go if that's the route I choose. She's also letting me explore the 1% option. I stopped by her house and got the locks changed. We agreed to try to talk once a week. The second MC session was yesterday. It's hard to tell if this is helping or if it's just moving the divorce dial from 99% to 1% at all. We discussed the list that STBXW made. There were a lot of good and great things on it. She admits that because of the hurt and betrayal she's caused me and our marriage, no matter how hard she tries, it probably won't be enough. But she knows it's no one's fault but hers, and she'll have to accept the consequences. However, until the papers are signed, she's going to try with everything she has to help me heal and get us back together. If it doesn't work, she'll try to help me move on and get past this, however that may look. She knows that because of her selfish behavior, things will never be the same, but hopefully, we can build something new together. The therapist asks if she's going to IC, and she says she went last Friday, Monday, and Wednesday, with another appointment on Friday. She plans to continue 3 days a week for a while since she's not working. Here's the follow-up. I ask her if she's going to be okay financially since she's not working. I probably shouldn't care, but I do, and I can't get past it. She says she has her half of our account, a small severance package from her company, and she'll take from her 401k if she's not working in 4 to 5 months. She's also considering starting her own small IT consulting firm specializing in small startups. We had discussed her doing this before D-Day. The therapist brings us back to the list and asks about the hall pass idea. I tell her I'm not interested. She asks why, and I explain that this is really the first self-serving thing SDBXW has done since her come to Jesus moment with her family. It's not really about me going out and sleeping with random women. It's about her trying to relieve some of the guilt she feels for the hurt and betrayal she has caused, especially to me. They both agree with me. I tell them that, despite not living together, I still take our marriage vows seriously and will continue to do so until we're divorced. The therapist immediately picks up on my phrasing. Until you are divorced, does that mean you've already made up your mind? I tell her that from the start, I said this was going to be hard to come back from, but I'm still clinging to the 1% chance. However, if any more self-serving things like the hall pass keep happening, that life raft is going to start sinking. We talk about this for a while, and then we're done. The weather is supposed to be warmer tomorrow, so I've got guys coming into the shop to go over equipment for spring work. It will feel good to get started on some upcoming projects. The fact that all of this happened in the middle of winter, the cold, long nights, and not much work hasn't helped. Had it been spring or summer, I could have buried myself in 16-hour workdays to keep distracted. Thanks to everyone for the continued support. I also want to thank everyone who has reached out with advice, support, and encouragement. It really means a lot. Hearing other stories has been helpful too. This isn't an update on May or STBXW, though. This is about POS, formerly known as the AP. I know I've mentioned that OBS hired the same lawyer I have. I asked her about this, and she said there was no conflict of interest, and she was happy to help OBS since she hired my lawyer. My lawyer had her investigator do a deep dive into POS for things to use in the divorce. OBS called me and shared what he found. Let's just say POS is even more of a pause than anyone knew. Think Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park when he sees the dinosaur droppings. First, it didn't take him long to move on from STBXW and start something new with someone else at work. The investigator found social media posts and texts between them and was able to catch them at his hotel after work. My lawyer is going to talk to the woman to get a sense of whether she's truly a victim in all this. Second, after some digging, the investigator found out that POS had affairs with 3 women at his previous job, not just the one that got him fired. The investigator tracked them down, and both women told the same story. When they tried to pull back from the affair, he used his position to create fake negative reviews and job performance issues, including attendance problems, enough to get them fired. Both of these women were married and terrified of their husbands finding out, so they stayed silent about everything. It was the third affair that cost him his job. Her husband found out and told his wife she needed to leave her job. They both went to HR with evidence of the affair, and he was fired. They're still in limbo about whether their marriage can be saved. The third affair is the real killer, though. Affair number 2 resulted in her getting pregnant, even though her husband had a vasectomy years ago, so she was in major trouble. They divorced, and her life is in shambles. Her ex-husband now has custody of their 2 children, and she's left raising a child on her own. He has been secretly paying her child support from a separate account that OBS knew nothing about, but he wants nothing to do with either of them. He's currently 3 months behind on support. My lawyer has agreed to represent all 3 women and file a lawsuit for sexual harassment against his former company. She asked if I would be willing to talk to STBXW about this to see if there was any job-related pressure during their affair and whether we could take action against her former employer. She said she would understand if I didn't want to, as my first responsibility in this matter is to me. I told her no, I wasn't going to give STBXW an easy out for the affair. So that's it. I have a hard time imagining anyone being a bigger mess than he is. If there's any karma in the world, he deserves to get hit by a truck while crossing the street. OBS has been advised by her lawyer that whether he has a job or not shouldn't affect any support she's owed from POS. So she's going to go ahead and inform HR at his current job. I asked if I could still be involved in that process, and we're working out the details. The next few weeks should be interesting. A lot of people have been asking how my kids are doing, so here's an update. They're both doing okay. They came over for dinner with their partners on Saturday, and I grilled steaks delicious. My son has been in contact with his mom and even went to visit her at her new apartment. I wouldn't say he's forgiven her, but he's starting to accept things and move on. My daughter still hasn't spoken to her mom since D-Day. While she no longer has the outward anger she had before, she still doesn't want to talk to WS. WS has tried calling her several times, but she's ignored her attempts. I've told her I'll support her however she chooses to handle this, but that it's probably not healthy to ignore her mom forever. Thankfully, both of them have good support systems in place. The upside is that I've seen them both together more in the last 6 weeks than I had in the past 6 months. MC this past week was good. I questioned the purpose of going weekly since we aren't living together and aren't dealing with the daily emotions of seeing each other. It doesn't really feel like marriage counseling if we're not interacting that way. We all agree to give it a few more weeks and reassess. The topic of POS and his history came up during the session, and the therapist asked WS how she was processing all this new information. WS said it doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. She alone is responsible for all of this. She's an intelligent, educated, strong woman, or at least she used to think so. The series of choices and bad decisions she made to get us here today is nobody's fault but hers, and she has to accept the consequences. We talk about this for a while before we're done. The therapist asks how I feel about everything and whether WS's reaction and remorse are starting to shift the 99 to 1% in her favor. I tell them that while we've addressed 2 of the 3 things I said from the start would make this difficult, I still can't get past what I walked in on so many nights. It still plays in my head, and I can't sleep. When I'm not distracted by work, the gym, or talking with the kids, that image just haunts me. Until I can get through that part, not much is going to change. She asks if I've talked to IC about it. I laugh and tell her that's pretty much all we talk about. I still talk to OBS daily. I tell her that WS wants to meet with IC and apologize to her. The therapist agrees, and we set up a meeting for next week. OBS then tells me about her meeting with the lawyer. PAS's new AP contacted her at work and asked to meet at a coffee shop in the lobby of AP's building. The AP introduces herself, says who she represents, and explains why. She goes through PAS's history at his last job and then brings up my WS. The AP asks the lawyer how she can represent PAS, who was cheated on, and me, who cheated on my WS. Isn't that a double standard? The lawyer replies that she needs to get her facts straight. PAS was cheating with WS, and she, PAS's newest AP, is just the next in line. I guess she didn't take that information too well. The lawyer then gets details about their affair. The AP is married. They've only slept together once, but he's been after her for a while. The AP tells the lawyer she's going to tell PAS it's over as soon as she gets back to the office. The lawyer tells her to contact her if PAS pressures her with her job to continue sleeping with him. She adds that how she handles her husband is her business, but soon all of this is going to come out to HR, and there will likely be fallout. When OBS tells me about PAS lying about me and the reason WS left, I completely lose it. I have to hang up the phone, and I start pacing around the house, swearing and screaming, even scaring my dog. I know the people where WS used to work. She had been there for 18 years, and I had been to many company outings with her, some with kids the same age as mine. We were involved in school events, little league, etc. When I finally calm down, I call OBS back and tell her to call PAS and tell him she needs to talk to him. She asks why, and I tell her I'm going with her, and I'll pick her up. She chuckles and says, okay. When we get to his hotel, she knocks on the door and tells him she's here. I'm fuming and can't wait for him to open it. When he cracks the door, I burst through it like a cop on a TV show. The door hits him in the face, and he falls back onto the floor. I don't think OBS expected it, because she's telling me to calm down as I drag him into the room. I called him every name in the book, picked him up off the floor, and pinned him against the wall, telling him that this time he'd be going to the hospital, and I didn't care if I went to jail. I was furious, asking him how the hell he could get away with telling people I cheated on my wife. OBS was pulling at my waist, telling me to stop and that he wasn't worth it, but I couldn't hold back. As I was still screaming at him, I looked down and realized that I had literally scared the piss out of him. He had peed his pants. I couldn't help myself and started laughing, telling him, "You pissed your pants." OBS asked him if he was okay, which surprised me, so I stopped laughing. She got closer to him and asked again if he was all right. He said he was, but as she got closer, she suddenly wound up and kicked him right in the balls. I didn't see that coming. She must have hit him hard because he doubled over in pain. Then, she started calling him names. After a few seconds, she pushed his head down and kneed him hard in the face right in the nose. I think she broke his nose because it started bleeding right away. She turned, grabbed my hand, and said, "Let's go." As we walked to my truck, I told her, "I can't believe you just did that." She replied that she'd taken a women's self-defense class a few years ago and had been wanting to do that since D-Day. I suggested we stop and have a drink or two to celebrate what she just did. We stopped at a place I knew, had a few drinks, and talked about PAS. I dropped her off at home and drove home, smiling from ear to ear, wondering what BS he'd come up with at work on Monday. Quick update. My house is a mess, and I'm going to be living in the basement for a while. Right after the first of the year, WS and I took out a home equity loan, and I had a contractor I know draw up a couple of remodeling plans for the kitchen, living room, and dining room into a larger great room, plus redoing the master bath. We couldn't decide on which plan to go with, so I finally said, "Hell with it, I'm picking one, and let's get going." Before anyone asks, I checked with my lawyer, and since WS signed the loan and it was disclosed in the 3 appraisals I had done to decide equity in the house for splitting it, I could go ahead. The kids came over last night for a chat, and we had good pizza for dinner. I told them about PAS's history, about how OBS and I are trying to help each other, about PAS lying about me, and about what happened when we confronted him. They were surprised because I've always tried not to show real anger in front of them, but they didn't blame me. They couldn't stop laughing at him peeing his pants. We then moved on to their relationship with their mom going forward. We talked about WS coming clean to the family, me going off on her, and explained that there's a lot going on with me and, I'm assuming, WS in IC and both of us in MC that they don't know about since coming clean. WS has been acting differently and has shown genuine remorse, realizing how much she has hurt everyone. We talked a lot, and the kids had questions that I answered. They asked about how I'm coping and what WS is doing to help me heal. I suggested that they both consider seeing an IC to help them, but our son declined, saying, "Say I am as I see." Our daughter agreed to come to my next IC session to meet her and decide after that. I also suggested that the four of us sit down together, WS, the kids, and I, and have a conversation. I explained that getting things off my chest with WS had helped and continues to help me, and maybe they needed to do the same. They both thought that was a good idea, as long as I was there with them. I'll let you know how that goes. Finally, WS met with OBS this morning for coffee, and I was there just in case. WS spoke first, saying how truly sorry she was for all the pain she caused OBS. She acknowledged that OBS hated her and didn't blame her for it. She said she hated herself right now and never wears makeup anymore because she can't look at herself in the mirror. Despite how much of a POS is, WS admitted she was responsible for her actions. OBS wanted to hear WS's side of the story to understand how much POS had lied to her. I had heard most of it before, but then WS shocked me when she revealed that she had tried to end it 3 times, but each time POS would threaten her job. The last time, he told her he would go to HR and accuse her of offering sex for a promotion. He also insisted on going to the convention with her and even came to our house, claiming he was tired of paying for the hotel while his wife was always home. WS said none of that really mattered, and she should have had the courage to end it, despite his threats, and gone to HR no matter the consequences. My hatred for POS grew even more. I got up, called our lawyer, and told her to get over here right now. She wondered why, so I told her where we were and that she needed to get here ASAP. When I returned to the table, OBS was talking about how she really wanted to keep hating WS but couldn't bring herself to do that. She realized that POS is really just a con man who uses women, starting with OBS. She thought they were a great couple with a great marriage, but now she sees she was just a vessel for him to have children, cook, clean, and be the woman he'd sleep with when no one else was available. Then she told WS that POS must have been feeding her a lot of BS for WS to throw away the life she had built with me. WS replied that she now understood why she fell for it, but that it was no excuse. She should have been strong enough to avoid this path and not hurt so many people. OBS told her not to be so hard on herself, explaining that she was just the next one, and if it hadn't been her, it would have been some other woman. WS responded, "But it was her, and because I let it happen, I've destroyed my family and hurt the people closest to me." They continue talking until the lawyer arrives. I look at WS and tell her that she needs to tell the lawyer what she mentioned earlier. I grab everyone more coffee and have to leave for work. The lawyer left 2 messages today, but I haven't had the chance to return the call yet. I'll call her tomorrow. Our MC session tomorrow should be very interesting. Finally, some good news business-related, not personal, but any sunshine is welcome right now. On Friday, I was contacted by a home builder I've been trying to land a contract with. They've chosen my company as the landscaping contractor for a subdivision where they're building high-end homes on minimum 3-4 acre lots. I can't tell you how happy that made me. On Saturday, the kids and I went to WS's place to talk. It went pretty much as expected, very emotional, with a lot of angry venting. Our daughter really let her have it, and I had to step in a few times, but each time WS stopped me and said she needed to hear everything that was on our daughter's mind, that she deserved all of it for what she put our family through. By the time our daughter was done, they were both in tears. Our son took his turn next, not as angry, probably because he'd already talked to his mom since D-Day. Our daughter, on the other hand, hasn't spoken to WS since D-Day, which was 7 weeks ago. I have to get back to work now, so I'll leave it at that for now. Okay, here it is. POS got scorched this afternoon. I'm retelling some of what I was told by our lawyer and OBS earlier today. Shark lawyer, SL, from now on, took care of the filings at the county courthouse, and then emailed the CEO and HR majors of both the company WS worked for and his previous employer. Late in the afternoon, she showed up at WS's company with OBS and WS, along with her assistant. While SL and Sand OBS went to HR, SL's assistant went to the CEO's office to deliver hard copies of the court filings. The 3 women walked into the HR manager's office, closed the door, and sat down. HR knows WS, but SL introduced herself and OBS. SL then handed over a copy of the lawsuit, which named the company and POS in a sexual harassment suit. The lawsuit included sworn affidavits from WS and the next AP detailing POS's behavior and abuse of power. The HR manager gave the typical corporate response, mentioning they'd have to go to the legal department, etc. SL then asked HR if she could escort her to POS's office to deliver a copy to him before they left. The CEO suddenly bursts into the office with papers in hand, asking, "What the hell is this about?" When he realizes who else is in the office, he mumbles, "Excuse me," and walks out. SL stands up and introduces herself, saying, "I think you know what this is about." The CEO looks at WS and asks, "Is this why you left?" SL cuts her off, telling her not to answer. SL asks again to be escorted to Pasa's office. The CEO asks her to wait outside for a moment. After a few minutes, OBS and WS leave the office and meet me in the building lobby. SL can hear the HR manager and CEO talking inside the office. A few minutes later, they come out and tell SL to follow them. They arrive at Pasa's office and go inside. The CEO tried to introduce SL but forgot her name. So she introduced herself, explained who she represented, and began by handing him divorce papers from OBS, stating that she was suing him for divorce due to infidelity. Next, she handed him papers naming him as a co-defendant in the sexual harassment lawsuit against him and the company. Then, she gave him more papers naming him as a co-defendant in another sexual harassment lawsuit involving him and his former company. Finally, she presented him with papers regarding a request to reopen the child support agreement between him and AP number 2. She explained that AP number 2 didn't have proper legal representation and any new child support claims would start from scratch, seeking to attach the claim to any severance pay from the company, including current wages, retirement benefits, and even future employment. To say he was in total disbelief would be an understatement. According to SL, all he could manage to mumble was something about what she meant by any future employment. The CEO then spoke, informing him that his employment with the company had been terminated effective immediately. He was to turn over his keys, company phone, and ID, and leave the premises immediately. Any personal items would be mailed to him. SL then asked the CEO if he would sign documents along with the HR manager to confirm that both the company and PAS had been properly served legal papers. He agreed and asked the HR manager to have security remove him from the building. SL left, leaving a card with PAS and telling him to have his lawyer contact her. She came to the lobby where I was waiting with AP number 2, WS, and OBS. A few minutes later, PAS appeared, escorted by security, walking out of the building. The four of us began clapping as he walked past, visibly dejected. I fought the urge to say anything, but AP number 2 couldn't hold back and muttered, "Karma is a bitch, and so am I." You. After a few minutes, we said our goodbyes. AP number 2 gave SL a huge hug, thanking her and saying she hadn't felt that good in years. WS said her goodbyes and headed to the elevator, explaining she was going up to her old department. I was a little confused, not sure why she was going back there. SL invited OBS and me to dinner to discuss the events of the day and fill in the gaps. At dinner, she explained to OBS what likely happened concerning the divorce filing. I asked her about the lawsuits moving forward, and she politely told me she couldn't discuss that with me since I wasn't involved in those filings. We had a nice social dinner and went our separate ways. When I got home, WS was waiting for me and asked if she could come in. Of course, I let her in, though the kitchen, living room, and dining room were all a mess due to the ongoing remodeling. She asked about the renovations, and I explained which design I chose. We briefly discussed that before heading downstairs. She said, "This will only take a minute," and began to tell me that she went up to her old department to explain to her colleagues what really happened and why she left. A few questions were asked about what happened in PAS's office, and she filled them in as best she could. She gave me a hug, said she'd see herself out, and that she'd see me at our next MC session. After she left, I went to the backyard and built a fire in the fire pit. I went inside, grabbed my newest bottle of bourbon, Angel's Envy, and a glass of ice. I sat by the fire, enjoying a few glasses of bourbon, reflecting on the past 7.5 weeks. While I'm still a long way from feeling normal, landing that big contract, Saturday's family meeting, and today's events have me feeling better than I have since before D-Day. I can't thank everyone here enough for all the advice, support, and encouragement I've received. It means more to me than I can express. Thanks again for everything. I forgot to mention that while everything was going on with PAS and his company, SL had her investigator deliver papers to PAS's previous employer. Several people have asked about my best friend, the guy who helped me after D-Day. He and his wife have been incredibly helpful, and I can't thank them enough. They've been finding excuses to stop by the house, making me dinner, dropping it off, and visiting the office for no reason at all. I talk to both of them often and keep them updated on how I'm doing. The kids are doing okay. My son is handling it better, but our daughter is struggling. Someone suggested that one reason she's having a hard time is because of her fiancé. The idea is that, like the old saying goes, to know what your girlfriend will look like at 20 years, look at her mom. Maybe the same applies here, and she's worried that her fiancé might see WS's infidelity as something she could potentially do in their relationship, which might make him second-guess marriage. I hope this isn't the case, but I understand why it's bothering her. I'll figure out how to handle it before it causes irreversible damage. I brought up the idea of a polygraph last week in MC, and WS took one last Friday. I'm satisfied with the results. That's all for now. Thanks for all the support and prayers. Quick update on PAS. I heard from OBS this morning. She was supposed to have a meeting with PAS and his lawyer at SL's office with SL and OBS present. When PAS walked in, he said nothing, not even a greeting. His lawyer started talking about how the settlement was too one-sided and that he would destroy it in court if they didn't fix things before it got ugly. SL let him go on until he finished, then asked if he was serious. She mentioned the evidence they had, the 2 sexual harassment lawsuits related to his abuse of power at his job. His lawyer was shocked and asked, "What lawsuits?" So, SL filled him in on the details. His lawyer asked if they could step outside for a moment to talk to his client. While SL and OBS were outside the conference room, SL said she knew exactly what the conversation was about. She explained that as a lawyer, there's nothing worse than being blindsided by information the other side has that you don't, especially when your client hasn't told you everything, no matter how many times you ask if there's more to share. The meeting ended, and the lawyer asked them to come back in. He informed SL that the conference was over, that he no longer represented PAS, and that PAS would have to find new counsel. He closed his briefcase, stood up from the table, and told PAS he would be receiving his bill before walking out. SL is trying to hold back laughter, but tells PAS to call her when he has a new lawyer and offers some advice. Next time, be sure to tell your lawyer everything, or the next one will walk out too. My client wants to get this over with, so she can cut you out of her life forever. She tells him he can show himself out as they get up to leave. She can't help but think what an idiot he is. Nothing personal, but today is RS' 50th birthday. Things are progressing well for me and her. I heard from OBS today PAS is on lawyer number 2. They met with SL today, and the short version is that PAS's new lawyer severely underestimated SL. He tried to pressure her into negotiating a settlement agreement, claiming it was too one-sided. SL responded that so was the way he abused his marriage by having multiple affairs and fathering a child with one of his partners. The lawyer argued there was no proof, but SL pointed to the lawsuits and sworn depositions from all the women involved. She also mentioned her investigator was digging into PAS's employment history, and so far, they had found 2 other women he had affairs with, one of which led to his termination. SL was bluffing, but PAS's reaction made her think she might want to look into it further. In the end, they agreed to everything OBS wanted, and the papers were signed. The same lawyer is handling PAS's lawsuits, and they wanted to discuss that next, so OBS had to leave. SL walked her out, shaking her head at the bad tactics. She said, "Never discuss a second case when you just got your lunch handed to you in the first. Fall back, regroup, and schedule another meeting." OBS said she was licking her chops and felt like SL was going in for the kill. OBS has gone back to work for her former employer, and they welcomed her back with open arms. She spent the last week and a half getting up to speed on new software and updates on tax laws and codes. She told me she hasn't felt this good in a long time. She still hasn't told her children the full extent of what a POS is, but SL has offered to help get them to her office to discuss the technical details of the divorce and slowly fill them in on everything. She promised to keep me posted on how that goes. Update. Hi everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for all your comments, support, and prayers. RS and I are doing better and slowly moving towards reconciliation. I'm optimistic. After my last post, someone asked about AP number 2. I spoke to SL about her, and she's not doing well. While SL has filed to reopen her child support case with PAS, it's taking time. Of course, PAS is showing his true colors and is even further behind on child support. AP number 2 is burning through what she got in her divorce and is struggling to find a job due to the pandemic and childcare issues. I thought I might be able to help her out, so I briefly shared her story with my year-round staff and asked if we could pass the hat. I'll match whatever they decide to contribute. I called SL to get AP number 2's address, and she said she would call her and let her know I was coming. The first time I met this woman was when PAS was escorted from the building after being fired. She looked tired, and we made some small talk for a minute before she asked why I wanted to see her. I handed her the $1 and told her she could relax for a while. She told me she would pay back every penny once she was back on her feet, but I assured her that wasn't necessary. Still, she insisted. I then asked what she used to do when she was working, and she told me. I handed her an application and mentioned that if she didn't mind doing some boring office work, I could use an extra hand during my busy season. I also told her about the daycare on the other end of the complex where my shop yard is. This was Monday. On Tuesday, she dropped off the application. She starts next week, Monday. No news about PAS and the lawsuits yet. OBS is happy to be back at work and seems to be moving on. No word yet on how she's handled telling her kids more details. Update. Today is Monday, and last Friday marked 12 weeks since D-Day, as good a time as any for an update. First, our kids are doing very well. Our son came around faster than our daughter. He accepted things and moved on with his relationship with his mom. It took our daughter a little longer, but she's going to individual counseling and has reconnected with her mom. She's even involving her in her wedding plans, so things are looking up. She graduates from college next month and is excited about that. OBS is doing well and seems to be moving on. She's gone back to work with her old company and is thrilled to be back. She called tonight to let me know that, along with SL, they sat down and told her 3 kids the truth about what a POS really is. I'm sure it was a huge shock for them to learn about the double life their father was living. POS's AP number 2 started working for my company today. We'll see how it works out. Carol, my assistant of 20 years, thinks she'll fit in very well and seems happy to be back at work. Finally, RS and I are slowly but steadily moving towards reconciliation. She has done everything she needs to some incredibly difficult and painful things, including a polygraph, an apology letter, and addressing every red flag and issue that stood in the way of reconciliation. At some point, seeing all the hard work she was putting in, how hard she was fighting, felt like a wake-up call for me. If she's fighting this hard, maybe I should get off my ass and get in the game. Some things are worth battling for. We're not there yet, but I'm optimistic. Thanks for all your thoughts, support, concerns, and prayers. I truly appreciate them. Update. Okay. Yes, there is justice or karma in the world. POS is either in jail now or will be soon if he isn't already. Let me start at the beginning. As you know, AP number 2 has been working for me for a few weeks now. She's been doing great and fits right in. On Monday, she brought me a Starbucks to say thanks for giving her the job, etc. I told her she earned the job and was probably overqualified for what she's doing here. We talked for a while about how she's doing and other things. More on that later. Then she asked if it would be okay if she took a few hours off tomorrow. Tuesday, she had a hearing with SL about her child support case. I told her, of course, it was fine. Around noon on Tuesday, she said she was leaving and came back afterward, beaming. She explained what happened and why she was so happy. First, POS didn't show up. The judge asked his attorney where he was, and the attorney said he didn't know. The judge was not pleased and told him that he needed to be there. The judge asked if everyone present was ready to proceed, then made the case official in legal terms. The judge asked if POS's attorney had his phone number and asked SL if she had any objections to calling POS and using that in place of him actually showing up. SL said that would be fine, and they made sure everyone could hear the speakerphone. The judge called POS. He answered, and the judge identified himself as Judge Wapner. Couldn't resist, of course. They were all on speakerphone and on the record in the matter of X versus Y. The judge asked why POS wasn't there, and POS said his attorney told him he didn't need to be there. The judge told him it was not a good idea to lie directly to a judge, even though this wasn't sworn testimony. He said, "Your attorney said he advised you to be here, and I believe him." After that, the judge asked POS questions for 10 to 15 minutes, including why he was behind on child support, whether he had gotten a job, where he was living, etc. The judge then asked SL if she needed anything else from POS, and she said no. He asked POS if he was okay with his attorney continuing to represent him without him being on the phone, and he agreed. The judge ended the call and asked POS's attorney if he had anything to add. The attorney tried to say that POS was currently unemployed, etc. The judge responded by pointing out that POS was even further behind than before, and he'd been out of work for some time. SL then had her turn, and she went to work. AP number 2 said it was brilliant, making it look like she really got the short end of the stick the first time around. The judge said he would review everything and issue his ruling shortly. 30 minutes later, we were all back in front of the judge. After some legal speak, he sided with AP number 2. She was granted more child support, and POS would have to make up the difference from what she was shorted before. The judge asked POS's attorney if he wanted to file a motion to appeal the ruling, and the attorney said it would be up to POS. After the hearing, he informed the judge that he would no longer be representing POS. The judge then said he would have a county sheriff deliver all legal documents from the hearing to POS at the extended stay hotel where he was staying. Because he was more than 6 months behind on child support, the judge also issued an arrest warrant for POS, ordering him to be taken into custody when the sheriff delivered the documents. AP number 2 was grinning ear to ear as she gave me the details. As far as AP number 2 knows, POS spent the night in jail. I'm going to call SL today to see if there's anything else she can tell me. All I can say is, he may finally get what he deserves. Update. As RS and I continue inching towards reconciliation, I had a small personal milestone. Nothing major, but it hit me when it happened. I went to purchase a new fishing license today at the store, and the clerk asked if I wanted to get a husband and wife license. Yesterday marked 16 weeks since D-Day. 2 months ago, I wouldn't have said yes, but today, I didn't hesitate, I just nodded. Kind of cheesy, I know, but I'll take it. Update. People have been asking for an update on my visit to see Pos in jail. My apologies for the delay. It's my busy season. First, OBS and AP number 2 are both doing very well. I'll try to post an update on them later. This happened on May 12th. I called OBS and told her about Pos being in jail and asked if she wanted to join me. I picked her up and we went to see him. I'd say he was shocked and surprised to see us. He wanted to turn and leave, but couldn't. We were escorted in by a corrections officer who explained the rules to us. We were allowed 30 minutes, but had to stay at least 10. The CO reminded him of that and told him he had to sit there. He asked why we were there. OBS said she was concerned about him as a spouse. Pos looked at her and said, "Really?" She broke out laughing and said, "Hell no." I started laughing and said, "You really can't be that stupid, can you? She cares more about what she leaves in the toilet than you." By now, the CO is paying attention because we're laughing so loudly. OBS and I both held up his booking photo and asked if he'd seen it. I said, "Pretty good likeness, but you should have asked the guy taking the picture to get your best feature." He looked confused, so I added, "You know, your tiny little dick." I held up my fingers. OBS chimed in. "Oh, yeah, I can attest to that." We both started laughing again. He tried to get smart and said, "You know your wife liked it." I replied, "Not really. She's told me the only good thing about you blackmailing her into sex was that you never lasted more than a minute." OBS burst out laughing and said, "Ain't that the truth? Good thing I had my toys when I was married to you." At this point, we're both cracking up, and I think the CO's figured out why we're there. I asked Pos what he was going to do while he was in jail, and I guess there's not much need for an IT manager who has to blackmail women into sleeping with him. He tried to get serious and asked OBS to do him a favor. I chuckled and said, "Seriously? Why would she do anything for you?" She said no, but he persisted, "Please, don't tell the kids where I am." She laughed and said, "Too late." When he looked at me, I called and asked if I wanted to join him. That was my next call. I almost, not really felt sorry for him. He just slumped down. I think the reality of his kids finding out he was in jail hit him hard. He asked OBS why she would do that. Her response: "I wanted them to know that their biological father has never really been a dad, in addition to being a serial cheater. A sexual abuser, a man who blackmails women into having sex. Besides all that, we can add jailbird to his resume. You are so pathetic. You can't even be bothered to support the woman who had your child due to your cheating. If I could, I'd find every woman you've used for your own pleasure, every family member you've hurt, and have them visit you here to rub your face in it." I had nothing more to add, so we sat in silence for a minute. I could have just left it at that, but I couldn't resist piling on. I told him he looked good in his jumpsuit. "Those are the same colors as Burger King. You should practice saying, 'Do you want fries with that?' If that doesn't work out, you could always have a long and prosperous career teaching typewriter maintenance at the Roco Club School for Women." That got a chuckle out of the CO. He looked at me and said, "You're no Tom Cruise." I replied, "There's another line from that movie that fits here. You can't handle the truth." Well, you can't. The truth is, you're a slimy, fat, short, balding little excuse for a man who had to hurt people to get your jollies. If you had any conscience at all, the number of people you've hurt, the lives and families you've ruined, would bother you. The saddest part is, you somehow found a beautiful woman who loved you despite your shortcomings, and had 3 kids who loved you too. But you threw it all away on an ego-driven power trip because you were always the last kid picked for the team and never fit in. That was it. I was out of ammo. OBS looked at the CO and gave a little nod. He came and took him away, then escorted us out. Not much was said on the ride home. We talked for a few minutes before she got out. She's happy to be working again, her kids are doing better, and they go to a family therapist once a week, with the youngest on Zoom since she's away at school. She was happy to hear that RS and I are doing well, and that things seem like they're going to be okay for us. She gave me a hug and thanked me for calling her to come along. That was in the beginning of May. I'm pretty sure he's out by now. Update: 2 quick examples of why we choose to stay and fight for reconciliation. A good friend here on Reddit told me weeks ago that he hopes RS and I are still together into our 80s. A few weeks ago, I went to Great Clips for a haircut. There was an elderly gentleman sitting by himself waiting, and an elderly woman getting her hair done. While I was getting my haircut, she was finished, and he came and helped her. She had difficulty walking, so he helped her. She asked why he was there, and he told her to get her hair done. She wanted to go back and have it done, but he calmly told her it was already done. It went like that for the next 5 minutes until they left, with her saying she didn't have any money to pay, and him saying it was okay. He doted over her, his devotion to her clear. When they left, the woman cutting my hair told me they were in their mid-80s and had been married for over 60 years. He cares for her by himself in their home. Next, for a while now, the Saturday before Father's Day has been a day my company takes off as a sort of break in the middle of the busy season. I reserve a pavilion at a park and have a cookout for employees and their families. Snow season bonuses are handed out to everyone, from the guys who shovel sidewalks to the ones who drive front-end loaders. Everyone gets something. In past years, RS and I would do all the cooking and serving. Of course, earlier this year, that was in doubt. I'm glad we are at a point now where we are able to do it this year. AP number 2 was there, looking like she worked with everyone for years. She helped grill burgers for everyone. Just a couple of good stories for a change. Big day coming up on Friday. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.